I thought this was just going to be another creepy kid horror movie, but it turns out it is something way cooler and way meaner. This isn't The Omen for millennials. This is something that is going to keep you guessing until the very end. You think it's supernatural, and then it turns in a way that you just won't be able to guess and will make you want to watch it a second time. It's day 63 of 365. Today's movie, Orphan. This one's directed by Jaume Collet-Serra and stars Vera Farmiga and Peter Sarsgaard, not Skarsgård, in what was one of my favorite horror twists of the late aughts. This director also made The House of Wax, which is a totally underrated campy horror movie. He also made a bunch of those Liam Neeson runoff movies from Taken, like Non-Stop and The Commuter, and also Black Adam. So this is not a director you may want to look up everything that he's made, but at least his first two movies in Orphan and House of Wax are definitely worth the watch. Maybe you can call them a mixed bag, but I love that this is what he's doing when he's really swinging for the fences. Now, Orphan's a hard one to talk about without spoilers, so from this point on, this is a spoiler video. My review without spoilers is this is a very fun summer nighttime horror movie to watch with your friends. But if you want to know what happens, stick around. The way this movie strings us along in believing that this is a supernatural, demon-possessed child horror movie, up and until we get to the twist, had me absolutely on the floor as a teenager. I was not anticipating where this movie was going. As an adult, I'm actually impressed at how well this twist holds up. It almost makes the second watch more worthwhile. Now, we just talked about The Skeptic recently in this series, and that's another one that was trying to stitch between supernatural horror and everything being totally explainable. I feel like Orphan does this a lot better by committing to one by the end. I've avoided saying what the twist is directly until this point. The twist is Esther is an adult masquerading as a child, and everything that seems supernatural up to this point is explained by the fact that she's a 33-year-old woman. That's why I love the way that it plays with horror tropes. All the creepy taboo stuff with John ends up being explained very on its face by the end of the movie, and suddenly the feelings that it was giving you halfway through make a lot more sense in a way that makes you think, oh, maybe they weren't just trying to do weird, creepy stuff in this movie to make me feel bad. It actually has a point in the story. Even the weirdness with Kate goes from a mother dealing with a demon spawn to the second woman jealousy trope, which is kind of inspired for what is otherwise a pretty campy, trashy horror movie. I like campy and trashy though. These aren't digs against the movie. I will admit the sequel is a little less engaging overall, but that's something that can't be avoided once the shoe has dropped. So let's go into my 3 favorite things from this movie so we can talk about some of the best aspects. One of my first favorite things that I mentioned is the way that this movie plays with tropes. It starts off feeling supernatural. You don't know, is she able to play the piano as well as she does? Does she know as much about sex as she does because she has an ancient demon inside of her giving her knowledge? Or is it potentially the fact that she's an adult? They never clue you into that aspect until much later in the film, and so it allows the movie for the first half to play around with these tropes, setting us up to think about movies like The Omen and the ways that those movies mess with the mother character and the matriarchal structure. In this movie, that's all being flipped on its head by the time we get to the twist. My second favorite aspect is the way this movie shows off a family in peril. What's going on in this situation with Kate and John and Max is sad and really humanizes them to us as a family. The loss that they had already suffered before the beginning of the movie allows us to put ourselves into their place, wondering what adding another person to the family dynamic could add for the good of the family. And Esther does a lot to bring those aspects in early to endear herself. That's really, really interesting to me. And reviews at the time called this movie trash. It is a little trashy, I'll give them that. But what I found really interesting was the way that Vera and Peter play these characters perfectly straight-laced in a way that makes them that much more believable. They're committed to making this family work, and not just on the screen, but in the plot as well. I really love that aspect, and it really humanized these characters for me. The last thing that I love about this movie is the final reveal, and not just for how good the twist is, but for what they add to the twist to make this a very functional horror movie. Instead of just telling us that this is an adult as a child, they also show us that there's a costume that goes along with this. This is part of the costuming that went into making an actual adult look like a child, which was fantastic, especially for the time. But I also love the fact that she's got fucked up teeth, that she's got this whole performance that goes into it. That adds a level to the character that I think removes this from the trash pile of horror cinema. This is something that's happening on multiple levels, and so it really, really worked for me, especially on my second rewatch. Knowing that it was coming, knowing that this was the twist, and now getting to see the way that they reveal it, the way that they lean into the horror tropes and almost turn her into the monster that she is so visually fantastic. Personally, this is one of the best twists of 2009, bang for its buck. But what do you think? Have I been too nice to Orphan, or did you also enjoy this movie? We're gonna keep the horror train running with our next movie. We're watching The Collector. This one's not as good as The Orphan, but every bit as trashy if you feel that way. And I'll see you tomorrow.